Austin, and I'm not the first to say this, but it's more like a music incubator. Whether you're a singer, songwriter, guitar player, whatever it is, it's a place to kind of find common kindred spirits who want to make music together. I've seen the comedy scene here really grow and thrive, and some really genuinely funny local Austin comics. You can spend your money going out to see and hear comedy or music, take your choice. Hopefully they all feed one another in a beneficial, positive way, but also there's that competition. It's sort of inevitable. Because of Austin's history, reputation, and the fact that it seems to be a magnet for creative people from all different kinds of fields, that maybe some AI breakthrough or use of AI is going to come from here. Austin City Limits has been, in so many ways, a window to the world on the music scene here.
Ignite your curiosity with Austin Next. I explore how ecosystems are built and how tech shapes the future. Austin is the frontier. It's where innovation takes root and new myths are made. Join what's next. Terry, welcome to Austin Next.
Hey, Jason. Nice to be here. How's your day going?
Good. As you possibly hearing dogs bark in the background. Good way to start it off. Well, okay, obviously ACL is a institution, and we'll get into, I think, its role and everything in the ecosystem. But I want to just kind of start at the highest level. How would you describe the Austin music scene today?
The Austin music scene. Well, much like Austin City Limits and much like the world we live in, it is ever changing. And, something like a music scene should not be static to begin with. I'm not one of those naysayers, people, frankly, a lot of whom are kind of close to my age, who talk about how the good old days were better musically. There was more of this, more of that. And the musicians, the artists in Austin today don't really, hold a candle to some of the people who have come before. I don't agree with that. I mean, yes, I grew up at a time, and I arrived in Austin at a time when music as we know it today, popular music or any genre of music, was very different. But I still, since this is what I do for a living, try to keep my finger on the pulse, I still believe that the music scene in Austin today is vibrant. Again, because of what I do, I have friends who are in their 20s, 30s, all ages, whose passion is still music, who get out and play music, who put together bands, or they'll play gigs for basically next to nothing just to have a stage and to sing songs that they've written, play music that they have composed. And something that never changes with time. It was like that back in the 60s, the 70s when I arrived, and it was like that before then. Austin has a rich music history as a music scene going back to the 1920s, probably even before then.
How much of is there almost like a first principles or a soul to the Austin music scene that actually does remain the same? Like there's a through line become all the way from, you said, like from the 1920s to today.
Well, I guess if there is, and it's always hard to generalize about these sorts of things, of course, when it comes to music or any sort of art form. I think the through line is that the music that comes from Austin has been, hopefully always will be, original and authentic and not necessarily commercially driven. I mean, as we all know, Austin doesn't really have a music industry per se. Yes, there are plenty of startups, indie record labels have come and gone over the years. Great Austin institutions like Waterloo Records is one example. Austin City Limits is obviously another example. But unlike Nashville, unlike New York and LA and other places like that, there isn't that industry. Austin, and I'm not the first to say this, but it's more like a music incubator where whether you're a singer, songwriter, guitar player, whatever it is, it's a place to kind of find common kindred spirits who want to make music together, write songs together. And I think there is that quality that goes to the soul, heart and soul of what Austin music is and should be. And so I guess that is a through line of sorts.
Why don't you think that we've developed the industry side of it so that you could have both the incubation and the launching and scaling here?
Yeah, that's a good question. And many have pondered the reasons why or why not over the years. I mean, they're not for lack of trying. I can remember when which record label was it? Arista at the time opened an Austin division here, and there have been other major labels that have kind of dipped their toe in the Austin market, thinking, well, there's a lot of great talent here in Austin. So why don't we have our own business set up here in Austin so we can capture these people before they move on to LA, Nashville, or New York? And it just never did seem to work out. There is still something about, starting in Austin, getting your feet wet, finding a stage to kind of try out your music, but then at some point deciding to take it to a bigger stage, a bigger city, a place where there is an industry that's already set up. Uh, and, there's an upside, downside to that sort of thing. If you look at the music coming out of Nashville, for instance, and frankly, I've never been a big fan of the Nashville music machine, and I'll call it for what it is, at least in my mind, and compared to the country music that comes out of Austin or country music that comes out of Texas in general. So I just don't think that there is first of all, I don't think there's the infrastructure, the ecosystem, the people with the money in Austin who want to invest it in the traditional music industry structure, which whatever that means in today's world, because we know all of that has turned upside down.
I was actually just going to ask you that is with Spotify streaming, YouTube, all these things, is it a completely different infrastructure that you would need to be investing in? And on the other side, is that now an opening for Austin in a different way because we didn't go the traditional path and now it's like, okay, well, now we can do kind of the new music infrastructure. Is that even happening?
I think so. I mean, there are already artists from Austin who live in Austin and play music in Austin who are basically finding success, or at least looking for success that way, versus the traditional model of finding a record label, an A&R person at a label who's interested in your music and who might sign you to a deal. Most emerging artists who I know of aren't really looking for that kind of a record deal, because what's it going to gain them? Having a record deal these days, what does it mean? You're not going to be, your goal is not to sell as much physical product as you can, or as artists wanted to once upon a time. So I think, yeah, whether it's Spotify or one of the other music platforms, I think that's really obviously the way to get your music out to the world. And it seems to be pretty successful for a lot of people.
I've heard this, and obviously you can correct me if my assumption is wrong, but that the way that artists mostly make, and this is probably more on the top end, but it might be on the the emerging layer as well, is in touring now. It's not in the songs themselves.
No, you're absolutely right. And that's where there is quite a divide. I mean, let's start with our own ACL Music Festival. An artist who plays ACL Fest, if you're a headliner, you're very likely to make, if not seven figures, at least a good six-figure talent fee for playing a headliner slot. If you're mid-level, you'll probably make more money playing that one festival show, or if you play both weekends, two of them, than you would if you went out on tour. Certainly more than you would from streaming or selling any sort of physical product. And then if you're at the, shall we say, the lower tier of talent at a festival, you're still getting a pretty good payday out of it. And, to their credit, the people at C3 who produce ACL Fest every year have done a great job of also presenting and including Austin talent in the mix when they book the shows. So, and they get paid pretty decently for that one gig at an ACL Fest. So, but yeah, touring in general is really the moneymaker for artists these days. But if you're established, if you've got that name recognition, if your streaming numbers are looking good, you're certainly going to play bigger gigs and better paying gigs in markets around the country than if you're still just trying to, get noticed. And it's more of a struggle than ever if you're just out there on the road because of the costs of travel and the cost of living in general. And you're playing at, if not dive bars, at least smaller venues in maybe smaller cities and markets around the country. But again, to my earlier point, there are still plenty of artists who are committed to doing it that way, even if it means if the band loads into a van or they pull a trailer behind them and they hit the road and they do all their driving and they're loading in and loading out of a show, that it's still worth it to them to try to make their dreams come true.
What, what about Austin as the platform? Because obviously, you said it changed. As Austin has always changed, and one of the big things that's changed is we continue to grow as a metro and how large we are. And so, I've seen it in both ways. One is I'll say like just generally we're becoming. Now I've only been here for 5 years, so this I may be wrong. A tour stop. Like the major tours are now starting to stop here. And then also, I would think that again, on the incubation side of the equation, just having a broader audience here, just from a size perspective, and then of course then that has a taste perspective to it as well, could incubate more. Or are we seeing that, or am I?
That kind of brings up another whole side of the equation, and that is the music venue side and how that has changed in the Austin that even I have known since I moved here myself back in the 70s. Back then the Armadillo World Headquarters was like the main hub mecca, so to speak, for artists of all kinds, including touring musicians who would come through and play Austin because there was the Armadillo World Headquarters, when normally they might have bypassed us and just played Houston, Dallas, or San Antonio. So in today's world, in today's Austin, we have the Moody Center, which is a world-class arena, certainly much better than the one that came before it, the old Irwin Center, the drum as we used to call it. So, and the Moody Center, thanks to their all of their industry connections, has booked world-class major headline acts that, as I say, used to pass by Austin in the day. So, but at the same time, those tickets are damn expensive, as you know. To go see a headline act these days, whether it's the Moody Center in Austin or anywhere, you got to almost like take out a loan or max out your credit card to be able to afford a night out like that. And so does that take money away from the smaller music clubs and venues in Austin, whether it's Sea Boys or the Far Out Lounge, and people are saving their money to go see whoever their favorite artist is at the Moody Center versus going out to hear music at a local club? But that also, there's so many factors that come into play. And an interesting bit of history.
I want to stop for 1 second. Quick question. Structurally, is it not the population? Like, why does a Moody Center versus the Irwin attract a headliner differently? They're able to, is it just they're charging more ticket? You're able to get higher ticket prices at those, so it makes it more financially viable? Or is it size of the arena? I'm sure the answer is lots of these things. But what changes when you have that kind of venue?
Well, so there are a number of factors involved. First of all, the Irwin Center had a notorious reputation for being a horrible venue. Artists who played there once didn't want to go back and play again. A booking agent who might have booked one of their acts at the Irwin Center is maybe not going to book their other acts because they have heard it has had such a bad reputation. So there's that. Plus, the Moody Center has the industry connections to book the kind of talent that the Irwin Center did not have. The Irwin Center back in the day, basically, those shows were booked in-house. They didn't have quite the reach and the relationships that the people running the Moody Center do today. So, there's that. I think that really has as much to do with it as anything else.
Mm.
But, I wanted to continue to talk a little more about the whole music venue scene because obviously that's a big part of what makes an Austin music scene or any city music scene anywhere survive or thrive. And it's obviously changed. People are not going out as much in general, spending money to go out to a bar to hear music. But that's why I wanted to bring up a really, to me, a fascinating historical anecdote that goes back to when I first got here in the 70s. First of all, liquor by the drink was not a thing in the state of Texas until I think 1971. You could not go to a bar and order a drink unless you signed up and became a member. It had to be like established as a private club. There were a lot of states that were like that back in the day, or even just counties within a state.
Interesting.
Counties and so forth. So yeah. And at the same time that the state of Texas finally legalized liquor by the drink, they lowered the drinking age to 18 from 21. And the reason they did that, this was back during the days of Vietnam. And the general feeling was, hey, if you're old enough to be drafted and go and die for your country in Vietnam, you ought to be able to go buy a beer at a
Yeah.
local bar
And
or
vote.
music. So at the same time, they legalize alcohol and they lower the drinking age in a city like Austin, Texas, which back then was like the biggest college town in the state, if not the world. People were looking for things to do. And so Willie Nelson, artists like Willie Nelson, but also Jerry Jeff Walker, Michael Murphy, Asleep at the Wheel, Marcia Ball, Janis Joplin before then, and then eventually people like Stevie Ray Vaughan and the whole Antone's Blues Club scene all exploded at the time because there was this craving to get out and spend money, drink a few beers, hear live music, and the musicians just flocked to Austin. Austin, I think that's part of the reason Austin became this mecca, this, live music capital of the world. And so today, the opposite seems to be happening. Maybe it's not quite as drastic as that, but survey after survey, research shows that people aren't drinking as much, especially members of Gen Z. Younger people are not drinking as much alcohol. So they don't have to go to a bar. They may not be that interested in going out to hear music when they can watch whatever they want to watch on YouTube. So it's interesting when you think about the impact that that is having today compared to the impact that it had 50 years ago when there were all of these incentives, reasons, not to mention there was no YouTube or, even cell phones to distract your attention from going out for the night.
How do you think about the design of the venues? Like, one of the things I would expect, I've gone to plenty of events, networking meetings, all these kinds of different things, and there've been a number that I like to feel Austin like they'll have music there. But it's so often that the intersection of the event, the design of the venue, i.e., like low ceiling, like the acoustics, where it's not harmonious, it clashes. I'm like saying to the person next to me, yelling because the conversation is such a key part of it. Like, how do we? Is it that we can't bring them together? It's like, look, you either want to be talking or you want to have music. Is it a technology fix? Is it we need to be actually thinking about these kind of venues? Obviously, if you're going to like in the marquee venues, you're going there to listen to music, but just really wanted to have it more part of like just the overall zeitgeist of what's going on.
Well, I'm kind of an extremist or a little bit obsessed when it comes to acoustics, which,
I would think.
go figure, right? Not just going to a venue that has horrible acoustics, but even going to a restaurant. It's one of my biggest annoying things, frustrations about going out to eat is a simple thing like putting some padding on the ceiling or on the floor can make such a difference. So you can actually have a conversation with somebody who you're trying to enjoy some good food with. And the same goes for acoustics in a club. I mean, that being said, the original Antone's Music Club back on when it was on East 6th Street was in an old men's clothing store. The ceiling was about 10 feet high, if that. And half the walls were glass because it used to be a men's clothing store. And the sound sucked. And the stage was about 2 feet high. And you could barely see anything if you were standing in front of the stage. But nonetheless, Santones just celebrated their 50th anniversary, so they somehow made it through, and not to mention moving to about 10 different locations over the years. And there are some venues now that really do a much better job with the acoustics, or they have outdoor stages, which when the weather is nice here in Austin, which is not a guarantee, frankly, it's better to be outside of a club, whether it's like the Far Out Lounge or some of the other places off South Congress, and be able to enjoy the music on a nice starlit Austin night. Yeah, acoustics cost money though. Getting the acoustics right costs money, and a lot of, if not like almost all club owners don't have that kind of discretionary money to spend on upgrading their sound and lighting system. I will say, and I'm a little bit biased, in addition to our venue, our home venue for Austin City Limits, the Moody Theater, our little mini ACL theater down below on 2nd Street, which is called 310, really did a great job with the acoustics in that room. It's a small room that only holds about maybe 300 to 400 people max. And, Anton's current location also has a much better acoustics than it did back in the day. So it makes a difference. If you're going out to hear music, you want to be able to hear the music and also not like blow out your eardrums, but you also want to be able to have a conversation with whoever you're standing with in the crowd. It's one of the things that always used to really drive me crazy about South by Southwest. When I would take great pride in going out to like 5 or 6 different showcases in a night. And I might just pop in and check out 3 or 4 songs and then cross that person off my list, or maybe check that person on my list and then hop over to another club. But at South by, if you were really interested in the music, the artist or the band, you would want to like work your way up as close to the stage as possible so you can really see and hear. But then you're sort of like trapped there. Whereas once you got back about maybe 10 people deep in the crowd, then you've got the chatterers, the people that are just there to talk and make the scene. And they don't really care about the music, or they certainly don't show or act as if they do care about the music. And that is still true when it comes to going out to hear music in general. There are people that just want to go out and drink and talk and have fun. And there are people that actually go to a club like Sea Boys, say, because you want to hear the music. You want to watch the musicians on stage. So everybody has different reasons for what they do for entertainment.
Then what's the state of the venues? We talked about that. Okay, people are, whether it's pulling on the demand side because the Moody Center is like, I want to save up for my 500,000 whatever tickets. So, but I've been to there for a couple of things. I haven't seen a concert there yet. I have been to the Moody Theater for a concert, and so like you kind of see the trends that are down. So what's going on? Or is there real trouble going on? You hear about the people going to Lockhart? Like where are people playing? I mean, one of the questions I wanted to ask, we could touch on it a little bit, was like, is the live music capital of the world? Is that, is it a marketing pitch, or is it still an accurate description? I mean, what does it even mean?
Well, again, that's an ever-changing scene and has been from day one. First of all, I think you'd have to be a little crazy or have a lot of money or not care how much money you lose to open a music venue. I mean, just the cost of opening it, maintaining it, booking the talent, paying staff, having enough insurance to cover the obvious risk involved in a business that serves alcohol late at night. But, the Armadillo World Headquarters, as much as people consider that a sacred thing, and it was a big part of the scene back in those days, it only lasted for 10 years. And by 1980, it was gone. People have tried to revive it, or at least revive the brand over the years. And it definitely made a lot of history in those short 10 years. But again, it just didn't last. The people running it ran out of money, or they just got burned out on doing it. Antone's is still going thanks to the dedication of a lot of the musicians like Gary Clark Jr. and Jimmy Vaughn, who were part of the original scene over the years. And they have personally invested in Antone's future to make sure it continues. But other clubs, Continental Club, for instance, on South Congress is still kicking. It's maybe as much of a tourist destination or a place that people just want to go because it has this cool retro vibe. But then, Sea Boys has a great space and a great vibe to it. Some of the clubs have moved a little further out. Like I said, the Far Out Lounge is really a great place to go and see live music. And they have a nice outdoor stage out back and lots of room to spread out. Hotel Vegas is still a thing, and they have their own outdoor stage. The White Horse, also over on East Austin. There's a funky club off of Airport Boulevard. I can't think of the name right offhand. I've actually never been there, but I know they do a mix of country, honky tonk, and roots music. But so, I mean, those are just a few whose names just roll off the top of my head. But the business is still just as tricky as ever. I wouldn't set foot in a music club down on East 6th Street. I haven't set foot on East 6th Street in probably years, and there aren't too many people who I know of from Austin who would, unless you're from out of town and you think that is the entertainment district in Austin, Texas, in which case you really don't know much about the Austin music scene. Yeah. What keeps the music scene, the music venues going? You need a place to have live music and to go to see and find live music. And somehow these places have survived, and new places have come along to replace the ones that have closed.
From a sense of place, though, like you talked about like it's not E6. Is it? I mean, would you say there is like, I don't want to say district, but a neighborhood, like a sense of like, yeah, if you go here, it is, or is it? There's a lot of places you were just mentioning, from down to the airport to South, like they're scattered. They're not. It's not this kind of I'm going to go from one to another, or even like connected necessarily even to. I want to know, like, as you think about like the restaurant scene as well and how those kind of things interact.
Well, I mean, it is nothing like Austin is nothing like Lower Broadway in Nashville. Have you been to Lower Broadway in Nashville? Do you know what that scene is like?
Yes, I walked through. I've been to Nashville one time, and that was. I will say it's funny you say that because that was one of the that's good because it literally, to your point, music was just flowing onto the street.
Yeah. Well, I have been going to Nashville since I've been the producer of Austin City Limits, so that's a long time. And Nashville, like Austin, has changed a lot. Lower Broadway has just become this like a Las Vegas strip
Hmm.
in Nashville. And yes, it is back to back live music clubs. And every one of them is branded by some country superstar, whether it's Blake Shelton, Kenny Chesney, Garth Brooks, Miranda Lambert, or whoever. They each have their own bar under their name, and each one has a different vibe to it. But they're all cover bands. I mean, there's maybe an occasional a band or artist who's doing some original material. You still have Tootsie's Bar, which is right behind the Ryman Auditorium, which was there back in the 1930s and 40s when Hank Williams and Ernest Tubb and Roy Acuff and, the people that played at the Grand Ole Opry would sneak out the back door to go to Tootsie's for a shot or two or three in between sets. So, but the rest of Lower Broadway in Nashville is just this. To me, it's a dreadful place to go, and the music is so loud, and the people are so obnoxious that
Tell me what
I,
you really think.
when I go to Nashville, I stay as far away from there as I can. And I think most Nashvillians feel the same way about Lower Broadway as most Austinites that I know feel about Dirty.
Hmm. So, so then it is then maybe coming back to Austin. You'd say
There's 36, then there's Red River, the whole Red River district, which is literally just steps away from Dirty Six, and that is a legit music district. I mean, now that you ask, is there such a thing? There are more music venues, I guess, within that, what is it, 3 to 4 block stretch than any other neighborhood in Austin. You've got the Mohawk, of course, and the Mohawk is indoors and outdoors. You've got Subs, which has been there for a long time and somehow survived with that large piece of dirt. And it's got an indoor club as well. That's a cool space, but then outdoors can accommodate up to 2,000 people. And then a few steps away from there is the Empire Control Room. And there are a couple of comedy clubs in that area now, which is a whole nother scene and thing we could talk about, which has been overall, it's been a good thing in Austin. I've seen the comedy scene here really grow and thrive, and some really genuinely funny local Austin comics. But then you also have the outsiders, the Joe Rogans of the world, who've come into Austin and sort of dominated that scene as well, and do these comedy clubs. And the fact that you can spend your money going out to see and hear comedy or music, take your choice. Does that hurt the music scene? Probably, because it's yet another choice that people have to make when it comes to spending their money. So, but my point being that Red River District is definitely a scene unto itself, and one that, the city of Austin, to its benefit, has even stepped up to help financially. Cheer Up Charlie's is another place. I don't want to forget about Cheer Ups. So, yeah, that is a place where you can go on a Friday, Saturday night, or whatever night, and you can move around from one place to another and hear all kinds of different sounds and maybe catch some comedy at the same time.
yeah, I would think taking a slightly like 20,000 foot view that the burgeoning comedy scene, the restaurant scene, like while on any individual night, and I'm choosing to spend my dollars, they're in competition. I'm hoping and thinking that there is some sort of flywheel effect where that the growing culture stack, entertainment stack is overall good, and having all of these different choices is they start building on each other.
Right. I mean, Austin is still a very young city, and there are still people moving here all the time. And there are a lot of people who work in tech and who make good money and are looking for things to do. They may not be as tempted to go to a bar to hear a local Austin band, but there are hopefully enough people who still do and will continue to do that. And yeah, hopefully they all feed one another in a beneficial, positive way. But also there's that competition. It's sort of inevitable.
You see that though. I mean, I remember like I'm thinking more on the restaurant side, but I'm sure it's on the club side where I don't remember what it was, but some bars they've been around forever, and then it was closing. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's an institution." Of course, somebody on X's response was, "When was the last time you went?"
Mm.
And so there is a little bit of, I think, the competition, like that, cream rises to the top. Like you got to be able to pull in people because it is interesting, it is better. You have innovation, however you want to frame that, and it's not, you can't rest on your laurels when you have, everyone's got a choice now. I can go to the comedy, I can stay home and have all that. I can go to a restaurant, I can go to a live music show.
Yeah, and speaking of institutions, I keep, now that we're talking about the music scene and venues and all that, I keep thinking of other places that I don't want to forget, like Don's Depot. Have you been to Don's Depot? That place is legendary itself. Been around for probably longer than I have, and they don't really they don't book any touring acts. It's mostly local, but it's one of those places that I think has Christmas decorations up permanently year round, and the bar scene hasn't changed, and the bar tenders probably haven't changed much either over the years. And people go there because it has that authentic Austin feel to it as much as they go to hear the live music. But
What does that phrase even mean, though? Because we even started like the conversation with everything keeps changing. And even if you go, I mean, I always like to point back to, and of course it makes sense in retrospect, that like Austin's not even the first name of the city. It was Waterloo. Like the two things that I've noticed about Austin being here that are consistent are change and people complaining about change. So when you say it has that authentic Austin feel, like what is it? What do you mean by that? Is it from the '90s, the '80s, the '70s, 5 years ago?
I'm the kind of person who likes change. When I first moved here, again, in the 70s, there were people I met who were leaving Austin because they thought Austin had grown too fast and had changed too much back then, when the population was like 200,000 compared to what is today, 1.2 million or something close to that. And that's just the city itself. So there are always going to be people that are never satisfied or think change is bad, or at least not changing in a good way for them. The restaurant scene back then was kind of pathetic too, unless you liked good Tex-Mex and barbecue, but that was about it when it came to dining out in Austin, Texas back in the day. It's kind of like, you mentioned the restaurant scene. I'm that way too, and I think most people are with their music clubs. If I'm in the mood to go out to eat for dinner, I have my favorites, places that I go to like every couple of weeks sometimes, or even more often. And then there are places that are new that I've heard about that I want to go try, and I may go back again or I may not. So I love change. I love to discover new things, which is basically the whole concept and philosophy behind Austin City Limits, and the reason I think it's succeeded for so long over the years. But I also have my favorites, the things that I know that are kind of predictable, but I like the fact that they are predictable in certain ways, and it brings me back. And it's the same with a music venue. It's the same with a band. I'll want to go out and see somebody who I've seen before, maybe dozens of times, but it's a great experience every time.
So how are you then sourcing talent for the show and everything, and that combination of like, it was obviously it's taste is such a key component. And so how do you filter out, or your team filter out, the sense of taste versus talent? Like, this is amazing, but even though I don't like it, and that it's a hard balance.
Yeah, well, the bottom line criteria for any artist or band who does Austin City Limits, who performs on our show, is that they can perform a live show and pull it off. And beyond just an Austin stage, a show that'll command a national, if not worldwide audience these days, because you can watch our show on the internet, no matter where you live. And you got to be able to pull it off live. That's kind of what the whole basis of ACL has been from the beginning, no matter how great a songwriter you are or how great a record you could make in a studio. So when it comes down to it, I book the talent for the show. That's the most important part of my job, and has been from the beginning. But it's with a lot of other input, a lot of ideas that I get from everybody. I have a great team of producers who work with me. We have our talent brainstorming sessions all the time, never stops. But whether it's my next door neighbor or my plumber or somebody I run into in a restaurant, and I get plenty of advice and suggestions for talent on the show. And it's more complicated than ever, Jason, because back in the day, ACL started as a showcase for Austin music with Texas music from wherever thrown in. And over the years, when I became producer, I expanded those bounds, the limits of Austin City Limits, to include all kinds of different music, to the point today where anything goes. If it's good, authentic, original music, and it makes for a great live show, I don't really care if it's Austin or Texas based or rock, blues, country, hip hop, Latin, classical. Literally almost anything goes. And you can just look at a typical season of Austin City Limits, and you can tell that has become our basic philosophy.
Do you see it being like attached to the current trends, ahead of them, behind? Like, I know your set is just a good show, but when you look back at it at like a season, like, oh man, this genre exploded that year and we were ahead of it, or we were in that same kind of wave, or how do you see it kind of reflecting the kind of the national?
Yeah, it's a combination of things, and it's a tricky balancing act. I mean, the fact that the show is so eclectic means that we have to keep it that way over the years. I don't want it to lean too far in any one direction or towards any one genre. But that being said, again, the world and the music landscape keep changing. So when Latin music became all the rage and everybody seemed to want to get on the Latin music bandwagon, I intentionally began looking at and booking more Latin artists on the show. And now that might have also been partially influenced by, one of my other side gigs when I have the time is I'm a producer of the Latin Grammy Awards. I'm also a producer of the other Grammy Award show. That's a whole nother subject we could talk about on another podcast. But so yeah, my exposure to Latin music really was, it just kind of blew my mind and opened my mind to a lot of other sounds that I was not that familiar with. Hip hop. We waited a long time before we had hip hop on our show. Mos Def was the first hip hop artist to appear on ACL over the years, and we've had a fair number of others who've been on the show from year to year. One of the challenges is the fact that our show is on traditional broadcast television, PBS. We have to be mindful of language. It's just a thing, and we've learned how to deal with it, in one way or another. But,
Do you? I actually, I'm curious. Do you bleep? Do you warn ahead of time? Like, how do you deal with that?
well, people always refer to it as bleeping, but nobody bleeps anymore. What you do basically is, especially for a music show where, these days, most of the artists and bands that come to do our show, they may have a 100 input console for all of the different instruments and microphones. Even a typical drum set for a show has like 20 something inputs to mic all of the different elements. So we basically duck the vocal. If there is an offending word somewhere in somebody's song, we just duck the vocal and it's kind of drowned out by the rest of the mix. And we sometimes have to cut away to a wider camera shot so you can't actually
read the lips.
read the lips either, which sometimes is pretty obvious what they're saying, even if you can't hear it. So that's just one of the things that we have to do. So probably the best example, or maybe worst example of that, was when we did do a hip hop show with the group Run the Jewels, and we had to delete, is the word we use, 154 words that they said.
Oh my God.
During that show. Whereas on the other hand, when we did a show with Kendrick Lamar, he was one of the most amazing artists. And frankly, that was one of the most amazing shows. When people ask me for my top 10 favorite of all time, he's in that list. I don't break it down any more than that, but let's just say he's in the top 10. But we talked to Kendrick ahead of the show about, the language issue, PBS and all that. He said, no problem. He said, I got this. He somehow had the uncanny ability in his brain to flip a switch and substitute a different word for whatever word would not have been allowed on PBS and make it sound like it was perfectly seamless. He could do that. Other rappers and hip hop artists we've had on the show, when we talk about that, it's like, just no way, man. I got too much to think about as it is. I can't really like try to process that at the same time I'm doing a live show. So to Kendrick's credit, of course, we all know he's an incredible artist to begin with. But yeah, that's one of the challenges that we do have to occasionally deal with. Hey, these days, I don't care what your genre is, hip hop, country, Latin, jazz, whatever it is, there's going to be language issues that we have to be mindful of. And we don't ever dictate. We don't tell an artist that they can't sing a certain song because of lyrics, but just make them aware that if they do sing it that the way that it's recorded, just like radio airplay, there's good chance that we're going to have to, duck that
Adjust.
sound. Yeah, that's right.
So one thing I kind of want to pivot or build off of is you talk about like obviously the audience has expanded for ACL and the a lot, this tends to be like the podcast is more like innovation, tech, startup, like that. It's a lot more of what we talk about. And one of the things is the narrative of Austin, right? Like you have, whether it be one of the things to talk about is like the CPG scene here, whether it be, Tito's or Yeti, like Austin is part of their flavor. They're almost exporting the culture of Austin. So people get a sense of it, when they're not here, and it's kind of becoming part of the narrative. How do you see the music, the live music, the venues as part of that narrative building for the city?
Aside from the Chamber of Commerce, or was it the City of Council of Austin that came up with that original motto, the live music capital of the world, I think that resonates with people in a lot of different ways. I mean, even people who the furthest thing from their mind is going out to hear live music where they live in Columbus, Ohio, or wherever, when they come to Austin or they hear about Austin, they think, live music. And Austin City Limits certainly reinforces that impression that people have, because Austin City Limits has been, in so many ways, a window to the world on the music scene here. Every year, as part of the mix, when I book shows, we include 2, 3, 4, or sometimes more Austin artists. Whether it's Gary Clark Jr., Black Pumas. This year, we did a special hour show to celebrate Antone's 50th anniversary with a lot of the great blues musicians who have played there over the years and the next generation of blues artists. So, I mean, people can't help but have that impression of music as being part of the fabric of what makes Austin special, different from any other city. Different from a city like Nashville that has that reputation, but in a totally different kind of a way and more one-dimensional sort of a way. But again, whether these are the same people who will come to Austin or move to Austin because they want to go out and seek out that kind of live music is another matter. And I'm not an expert enough to know what the research is or what it says about that sort of thing.
What do you think about within Austin itself? I think there's two frameworks I think about a lot. One, I call it like the inspiration innovation loop. Now, I tend to think about that honestly a little more in the visual sense. I see, I see this science fiction movie and I say, hey, I want to go build that thing now, right? Go drive down, like I've been driving down to Brownsville and see the SpaceX, launches and catches. It's been more in the visual sense, but I also, as someone who writes a lot, I always have music in my ears and kind of listening. And we can go down the path of, where you think about like AI generated music and all of that. I'm sure you have an opinion on, but where do you see that kind of connection with the kind of the tech and innovation scene and the music scene? Is there one in there, and could it be even stronger?
Well, I mean, just from everything you've said, it leads one to the conclusion that Austin is just an innovative capital in so many ways, and culturally as well as, in every other respect. Going back to the early days of the Austin music scene, when Willie Nelson arrived here and the impact that he had, not just on Austin, but on country music. Michael Dell inventing a laptop computer in his garage. All of the filmmakers, people like Richard Linklater and McConaughey and so many artists, not only from Texas, but from wherever, who want to make Austin their home, or at least have a home here, and the comedians and the restaurateurs and the fine dining people who have made their mark and made Austin a very, a dining scene of its own. I don't think there's a Michelin star restaurant in Austin yet, for whatever that's worth, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's coming too.
No, we've got 7.
In Austin alone, or in
In the
Texas?
last round, it was I'm in big trouble. I'm gonna get it. Hestia got one, Interstellar got one, or I think La Barbecue got one. I think Leroy got one, and I feel like I'm missing there were 7.
Yeah, I know. I think you're right. And I stand corrected. And I know there have been some James Beard Award winners among Austin chefs as well. So yeah, it is really an innovative for a city its size. And we still have to keep in mind that Austin is no Houston, Dallas, New York, LA, and there are, I don't know, maybe a dozen other cities that are still bigger than Austin. And just within the state of Texas alone, we have plenty of competition. That it has excelled in so many of those other areas, whether it's tech or engineering. Who is it? There's a company here that I think is one of the pioneers in the whole art of 3D architecture, 3D
Icon.
Icon, right? Exactly. Yeah, they're doing some pretty incredible stuff here too.
Yeah, Evan Loomis, one of their founders, has been on the show.
And that's where music fits in as well when it comes to innovation. Now, is there as much innovation in Austin music as there was, or are we kind of looking at it through our own lens and our own perspective or sense of history about music in Austin? It's just hard to say. Or maybe there'll be more innovation musically in Austin in the years to come, or even in the next year than there is today. All it takes is one or two breakout artists. There's a breakout band in Austin right now that I'm beginning to hear big things about called Die Spitz. If you're familiar with them, these are 5 women, all of whom are native Austinites, born and raised.
So the real unicorns.
Absolutely. And they are as hard rock, badass rock as you will hear anywhere. And they've just been signed by a major publicist. And I don't know if they have a record deal or if that even matters, but they're getting a lot of outside attention. There's even some talk about them maybe getting a Grammy nomination for Best New Artist.
Wow.
So it would be interesting to think that the next breakout music or band from Austin could be an all-female, like hardcore rock band of people actually born here, not people who transplanted to come here.
I do find it funny, just the way the language persists, how we still call it a record deal.
Well, Jason, that could just be me because of my age and when I grew up.
I would say it too. Like it's, music deal doesn't sound right to me. Like it doesn't flow, and I don't know what else you'd call it. I'm sure there's a different formal name, but.
And what kind of a deal? What is it? What is a deal? I mean, people who don't really know or think about what it takes to be a successful artist, there are a lot of deals. Maybe the record deal was the most important one back in the day, but you still need, at least I believe, you need to have partners to be a successful artist. A partner who is your manager, a partner who books your shows for you, someone who can help with your publicity. Your social media obviously is an important thing, maybe one of the most important things today about being a successful artist. A business manager who can help you keep your finances straight. Road manager. I mean, all of those people are an important part of what a team needs to be to really launch and manage a successful career. It takes more than just raw talent, I'm sorry to say, but I think anybody who tries knows.
And okay, I'm going to drop, I mentioned a minute ago, but drop a little bit. What is your feeling in with the technological changes that are going on now and things like AI generated music, and one as an overall thing, and then of course as a tool set? I mean, we can say AI generated music, but obviously, I've seen this in any sense, just playing with, the image generators. Someone who has, I have much more written skills than I do in the visual arts. I can now do something that I couldn't do before. I can't draw like a stick figure, but someone who is visually inclined will make things that are much greater than I will. I would think the same thing, when I use Sono or any of these other tools, which, I play with sometimes. But then someone who's, again, musically inclined will be able to do things at a whole other level.
Yeah, Jason, I don't know what to think about AI and the impact that it's having and is going to have. It's not like it's coming because we all know it's already here. And it's just going to continue to get bigger and dominate more and more spheres of our lives. But, and I try to put it in some sort of perspective, like when auto tuning first came on the scene and people complained, the purists, that was just not fair. You either have the talent or you don't, or if you make a mistake, that's the way it is. Maybe you can do it over again, or maybe you shouldn't even do that. Uh, so what impact overall AI is going to have on music or anything else for that matter is such a work in progress. I mean, people say it's obviously game changing, it's terrifying, it's this, it's that. And what people can do with this amazing tool, as you say, this ability that didn't exist even just a short time ago. I think the truly creative people will find ways to work with it that they may break a lot of molds and change the way we do see and hear things, but hopefully it'll find a place that still maintains the purity, integrity of what you're doing. And that sounds very pie in the sky or naive, but I don't know. Nobody knows really how it's. Ask me again in about a year and we'll see where we stand.
And then a year after that, it's just amazing how fast it's going. I think is Austin being such a tech and creative capital that it actually is an opportunity to break the mold and do things that we hadn't seen before. And I would hope, look, I think that there are three ways that you can, I think, approach something like AI, right? So one can be like just naysayer, it's horrible, it's ruining, like as people said with the photographs, the painting, and all these things before, right? Your auto tuning example. But the second is the crutch, right? If you're using it as a crutch, I can tell AI writing when I see it, when the people who just say, give me a paragraph, and you're like, oh, well, that's all you did. I can tell it, right? Versus, of course, I use AI when I write, but my job is to pull out, the Shakespeare and not the dime store novel, right? When I'm using it and helping it to kind of enhance my writing in different ways and looking. And I would think the same thing. Now, I use it as a crutch for music. I was, my oldest is in chess and done tournaments. And of course, I said, give me like a sports anthem pump up song for chess as we're driving. And like, yes, that was a crutch and just a nice use case. I wasn't going to go sell that, but it was nice to kind of get us in the mood as we were going. But then the last is, of course, as we just said, the tool, right? And the truly creative and innovative, and I think of that especially in the music scene here, like, there could be some, whether it was like, you're going to correct me if I'm terrible, like synth in the 80s, like they use these new tools in ways that we weren't thinking about.
No, I mean, that's the key to it. Is it a tool? Is it a crutch? Is it some of both? I would like to think, and maybe I'm, again, just being naive, that you can still, or I can still tell the difference. And maybe there will come a time when people who don't know the difference, who don't know the real thing versus the AI generated thing, are going to be able to tell the difference. I would like to think that I could tell if AI was used or was maybe used too much, whether it's creating music or especially for any other sort of art. But I don't know. It might get to the point, Jason, where it's impossible for you, me, or anybody to really tell the difference. And that's the terrifying part.
Well, I think when we reach that difference, though, I think we might see different things in terms of what, I think it'll be this, like, it's like writing. Everyone will be using AI in writing, but like you shouldn't be able to tell. If you're able to tell, it means you're using it badly.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Good point. But also to your point, I think because of Austin's history, reputation, and the fact that it seems to be a magnet for creative people from all different kinds of fields, that maybe some AI breakthrough or use of AI is going to come from here, from somebody or from some group of people here in Austin, Texas, that we can't even imagine, what it would be, what good it could serve or bad, or both for that matter. But it does seem that Austin is a likely source for something like that, some breakthrough moment to happen.
Yeah, I think that bringing the creatives, the tech, all of it together, I think it creates such an opportunity for us that I think is in many ways not available in a lot of these other big hubs.
It does boggle the mind, though, just to think about all of it.
So we can keep going for a long time. This has been great. I always end with the same question. What's next, Austin?
What's next, Austin? So that is a wide open question. And obviously, you're not just talking about what's next, Austin City Limits. You're not even just talking about what's next, Austin music. But I don't know. This is where I have concerns. I always have hope and dreams of my own. And I like to play a part in making some of those dreams come true, which I think I have and my team has done with Austin City Limits over the years, introducing, discovering new music. But I'm a little concerned about Austin, Texas in the current political environment that we live in. I'm not so much worried about the cultural environment. I'm not so much worried about the uh, the innovation across the arts and technology in Austin. But I wonder if because of the political environment, without getting too deep into that, it may discourage people to want to continue to come and to be a part of the Austin scene, the music scene, the tech scene, the film scene, the food scene, whatever comedy scene, whatever scene you want to talk about. I think it could have an impact in the future, unlike the past, where Austin has been this draw, this magnet that has brought a diverse mix of people from all over, whether all over Texas or all over the country or world, including the University of Texas' own influence in attracting the kind of major league talent that we have had over the years. An unpredictable factor, and especially in a world that's more unpredictable all the time. But I do have that concern. So as far as what's next, Austin, I think the future will depend on more than just what's happening with the music, the film, the tech, the food, comedy scenes. I think the overall environment, I hope, will continue to be as welcoming and as diverse and open to everyone from everywhere with every idea that they have to bring to the table.
Cowboys come here of every shape and size.
This is true, and they have forever.
Terry, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
It's been a pleasure, Jason. And you're right, we could keep on talking, and maybe we'll have to continue.
Looking forward to it. So what's next, Austin? We're glad you've joined us on this journey. Please subscribe at your favorite podcast catcher, leave us a review, and let your colleagues know about us. This will help us grow the podcast and continue bringing you unique interviews and insights. Thanks again for listening, and see you soon.